Shall we start?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Let's start.
welcome, Jiaming, to our visit.
Thank you.
So today, Jiaming will share with us 3 projects that he did in the past, and we will talk maybe a little bit more about his recent status or things that he's working on as well. And for the current time being, when Jiaming is sharing, please remember to mute yourself and feel free to, as I mentioned, drop down any thoughts or question in the chat room, and then we could revisit it towards the end of the session. And so, shall we start?
Yes, I will start by sharing a work that I did in 2017 to 2018, and it's a project about a park. So I will show you some of the. Basically it's a photography work. I will show you the photographs first. So I make the video of it. Oh, so I forgot to share my screen. Is it working now? Is it shared?
Yeah, we saw your screen now.
Okay, so it's this one. So it's a work of photography, and it's about a park. It's like after I came to Hong Kong, a friend told me that there is a park where some gay people is cruising there. So he took me there one night, and we had a walk around, and I found it it's very interesting there. I've always known this kind of place as cruising spot within the gay community. I read it on books too, and there are cruising spots in different cities in the world. But I've never been to any real one myself. So I remember I was very amazed by that. It's like you walk in there and you saw people around, and you can feel the tension and emotion around. So I found it very attractive. So I decided to make the work about it. And yeah, as you can see, I photographed some of the environments there, and I also try to make some plots myself with props. Yes, this is it.
So
the idea of the project, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what's part of it interesting is in this series, you try not to actually because from your background, I think you were studying journalism before, and then you came to Hong Kong, the City University, the Creative Media School, to study art, photography, actually, instead of journalism. So the shift from doing documentation on factual or on reporting kind of mindset, you change it into more expressive or including more of your own feelings or emotions into these series of photographs. Because as you mentioned, there are emotions when you were first encountered this part, when you first go to these cruising spots to experience it. So it kind of, you try to use these series of photographs to convey how you see the gay community gathering in this park. So what kind of emotions you're trying to shown in this series, probably? About
first of all, I think this series is quite different from what I have been doing lately. And it's also, I think it's a starting point of my transition from a journalist background person to an artist. I remember I was like, I mean, when I was in the journalism school, I was into photography very much, into photography and video making very much. But after I came to the School of Creative Media in Hong Kong, at the beginning I struggled a bit. It's like when I was in the journalism school, we were always taught to be subjective, to be objective, to be objective about the events or the events we try to cover, but but somehow I feel that I have too many personal emotions and too many personal feelings to put into the events or the facts or the phenomenon I see. So I've always struggled with this. But somehow after I starting to study in the School of Creative Media, I also felt uncomfortable, or like, at least struggle, because somehow, I've been trained as a journalist that I don't know how to put my personal feelings into this. But what is good about this project is, what is good in terms of transitioning myself in this project is kind of documentary, but I also try to put more personal emotions into this. Like you can see in the bubble part, and like there is one photos where there's a curtain, where there is a cloth in the middle of the photos. That's the two photograph in this series that I try to make a plot myself. I add some elements onto the actual scenarios that is really inside the park. I think it is also related to the emotions or the ideas I try to express through this project, because what I think is very interesting about this park is like it is known as a cruising spot, but only within the gay community. I also read about a concept coined by Foucault. It's called heterotopia. If you're interested, you can like Google it. But basically, it's very related to utopia, but it comes from ancient Greek, and literally it means other place. So as you see in this project, or as you see in the park, it's, first of all, it's a park. It's designed for citizens or people living in the cities to have a leisure time there. But also it's known to a very specific group of people as something that is functioning as something that is functioning as a cruising spot. So I mean, there are two parallel layers here. So I think it's so why I chose to add another layers or the plot scenes into this series is that there are another layers to like normal people who is passing by the park that they cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're trying to kind of unveil, like review the invisible side of
Yes.
the park that so usual like passing by might not know, because like usually when people go to the public park, maybe usually people would go in the morning, or but in the evening,
yeah.
like seldom people would go there, and so probably people like me, I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
And could you like talk a little bit about the lighting situation when you were taking this series of photographs? Because it was like very dark environment, but the reflection that it's shown in some of the pictures or the lighting situation is quite interesting, I think, because like usually when you're trying to like show these hidden spots in the park, it's like in general it's very dark environment, but at the same time, as you can see now in this picture, the reflection on the tree trunk or this like secret window as part of the structure inside the park, or the reflection on the pond, and there were groups of flamingo in the park as well. So could you speak a little bit more about the lighting situation when you were...
I think I remember like one of the most one of the problems that I try very hard to deal with when I was making this project is the lighting situation. Of course, I mean it's very dark there, and it's I think it's one of the reasons why the gay communities would gather there, because it's just dark, and I mean they don't want to be seen, and it's definitely related to the like the social situation they are living in. And yeah, I mean the way I try to deal with the lighting situation is like you can see in some of the photographs I use flashlight, and in some of the others I tried like long exposure. And like it's very interesting that if you use these kind of techniques, it's always like it really reveals the images or the elements that if you walk through the park by yourself, you would never notice them with your own eyes. I mean, like the camera is like a equipment that help you to discover this kind of elements. Yes.
And for one of the pictures, I think maybe many people who have seen this series of work before might already notice, like it actually is your background as well, that, like tunnel kind of area. I was wondering, like that lighting situation at that tunnel is quite different from the other pictures in this series. And I think there's a message that you're trying to say in this image as well. Do you want to talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, actually when I was making this project, I didn't really notice that this one is so different. But like afterwards, when I was trying to compose the series, I really found something like different about this one, because it's part of the cruising spots, but I mean somehow it's too bright there, so there is no actual people like really gathering there. But I believe it's definitely one of the it's definitely one part that if you are cruising around, you would like pass by there. So why I use bubbles here is like actually the many bubbles you see in this image is I Photoshop them. They are not really appear at the same time in this one. And I do think that the bubbles I use here, it's a mimic of the people around there, like I mean the spirit of them. It's like they're like very transparent. They're reflective. They gather there, but somehow you see through them in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see there are quite a lot of like layers in that picture, like especially the kind of magical kind of element in bubbles as well. And I'm sure like different people might have different interpretation as well when looking at pictures. And I think worthwhile to say as well is this series, you were shortlisted in one of the photography kind of competition by WMA for this series. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Shall we share the next project? Like, is there any question maybe from the audience on this project, or we could like revisit this towards the end as well. So feel free to share and
actually about the park, I also I had an early like video work about it too. So I may also want to share that. Yes, that's it. I think in this work, I mean, somehow you have a more direct feelings of how I feel about this park, or I mean, at least the cruising experience in this park. Yes. Shall we move to the next one, or?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think from the video is kind of a very kind of gradual experience of how you encountered first when you were in the park, and then getting more emotional and more personal, and then going back to that stage when you mentioned that some of the gay community will go back again and again, despite the convenience of the dating app these days. Like the experience of going into the park versus going on to dating app is so different. The experience, the waiting part, the emotional part, so I guess like the whole kind of video will express in that way. And shall we talk about the next project?
Yeah. So the next one is a performative work, and I mean in 2018, I was collaborating with four other artists, and we were making a performance in Main Contemporary Art Museum in Shanghai. So, I mean, the museum basically gave us a deserted mansion, and we got to use the rooms inside the mansion. So we were using one of the rooms, and the rooms was how to say? It's not just a room. I mean, we were using one part of the mansion, and we basically using we divided the parts into 4 different rooms, and there is a balcony there, and the performer will be performing on the balcony, and then there is a living room, And if the audience get in, they would see a projection projecting what the performer is doing on the wall in the living room. And then there is a darker room. A musician was playing music with dildos in that room. And then between the dark room and the living room, there is a small connection that we covered with like some decorations.
Maybe we can have show the trailer so people have a better idea of like the 4 kind of parts of the performance.
Yes, I will
mention.
Yeah,
and then,
you will see what I have described in this trailer. And maybe, I mean, I will also show you if your audience in the performance, you see the projection. I will also show you like what the audience would see in the projection. Basically, it's a 10 to 15 minutes performance. I will show you like some part of it. as it's like this. I can also show you like how the balconies look like. The balcony is something like this, and the audience can see through the glass door and glass windows of the whole scene. And this is the living room. Also the dark room. One more of the balcony. And this is the connection between the living room and the dark room. No, that's all of the work is about.
Could you share with us more about maybe the concept or idea behind the project, like why you have a performer like at the balcony with the sound and the whole?
I think through this project we want to talk about. I mean, the content is obviously it's about a live streamer. I mean, the character is a live streamer. The character on the balcony is a live streamer, and we want to talk about this group of people and the culture of live streaming, based from the perspective of a professions and from the perspective of a customer who consume this kind of culture. Yes, and it is
sorry.
And we want.
Sorry to interrupt, Ron. Did you want to share with us something, or do you mind if I mute you for the current?
I think it's a mistake.
Sorry, just want to double check. But yeah, feel free to ask any question during. But yeah, shall we continue?
Yeah, and also
you mentioned about the consuming kind of culture of images of YouTuber or like kind of KOL people trying to how they're reviewing themselves on the internet or attract crowds or audience to grab their kind of attention or yeah.
Yeah, and I think no, I forgot something. Wait a minute. I think all of us are quite like familiar with this kind of culture because it's like so popular. As like what we are doing now, we are live streaming. We are sharing through live streaming. But what I am interested in, or like the five artists are interested in, like is this kind of culture, or I mean the interpretation or the translation through images presented on different media, and we really want the audience to think about to think by seeing the images beyond what is shown on the screen or what is shown through the internet. So we show them like the projected image. We also show them the balcony, which is outside of the live streaming. And we show them before and after the live streaming. And we definitely think the part of the music part is a dialogue with the live streamer. It's a, how to say, probably it's between a progressive way, or I mean, as you can see there, I think Doodle is kind of progressive. No, aggressive, not progressive, sorry. Aggressive, yeah, it's aggressive, and somehow the sound is also quite pleasing. too. So I think the music part is a dialogue between the two emotions.
Mm-hmm. And I think like one of the things that I think you have also mentioned is like how the phenomenon of like on the internet or nowadays people are like overwhelmed or flooded with images on social media or on other platform. Like people are flooded with all these images from these live streaming or some of these like really people trying to show themselves. But all these images, does it truly reveal who they are or their identity or their character, or like there are always some hidden part that we don't understand or we don't really review in these cultures. So I think that's part of what you're trying to say in this project as well.
Yes.
Do we have any maybe question for now for this part, or shall we continue to talk about the other project and then we could have a more discussion afterwards? Yeah,
let's go to the next one. Yeah. So the next one is actually my graduate thesis. So this one also need to like the story starts like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I started to take photographs of gay people that I mean my gay friends or some acquaintances that I know from dating apps. So in the beginning I was just taking photos of them. Yeah, this is like part of the series. I mean, at the beginning, I was just trying to, I just want to capture the lifestyles, or I mean, the existence of the gay people, of the gay male people. So, and then, I think starting from 2000, no, I mean, it's always there, but I became interested in like in the way. I mean, I'm one of the I use dating app myself, so I found that it's a very interesting phenomena on dating apps that the images they show people or the users try to use images on dating apps in their profile to present themselves. But I found it very interesting that there is a phenomena there. I mean, they tend to show themselves in a very similar way. Like they're half naked, they are taking selfies of their muscular bodies. So I collected some of these images and like make some adjustment, and then I turn it into light boxes as part of my graduate thesis work. It's like this. Yeah, so overall, there are 3 parts in my graduate thesis. So one part is the light boxes, and there is portrait that I took of gay males, and there is also a video. This one is a video. It's the performer is, I will show you. So yeah, I mean, this video is about someone who's trying to take a perfect selfies, as this project is called Excessively Perfect. I think similar to the performance that we just seen, to the last project that I just showed, I try to show the expansion of a still image. It's the process of making an image. And yeah, I want to address what is beyond the images. And let's go back to the...
Could you show us again the portraits?
And as you can see in the installation view of my graduate thesis, this part, besides the single image of the portrait, I try to project a one more layers onto the image. It's actually just some lines, and it's some dialogue I composed myself from my experience of having conversations on dating app. And it's like this. Yes. It's very simple, just 10 lines, but I think it's I like it very much because I think it's a how to say, it's very metaphorical in terms of the projection. It's digital. Somehow it's very similar, and the photo is analog. Somehow it's very similar to the impact and influence of how dating apps or this kind of digital social media is impacting us living in the real world.
Could you show us again the portraits that you took as part of...
Is Celia talking? I cannot hear Celia.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Uh-oh.
Oh, no, it's working because I'm mute.
All right. So for the, as part of this installation, at first you were showing us some portraits that you took.
Yes.
Do you want to show us again? Because I think some audience, it was a bit fast, so.
Sorry. Portrait.
And then I think it was quite interesting to see the contrast of this series of portraits, where which you have made connection with these people and they feel comfortable of you taking pictures of them, compared to those that you took from the dating app. Those are very series of pictures that you can see that you made into the light box, that the contrast of these relaxed poses and these trusted kind of portraits that you took, compared to those that very very kind of, how do I say, like images that people want to be portrayed is quite different. And how you put it like kind of against each other as well, because as part of the installation, on one wall you were putting these realistic portraits and figure. On the other hand, you were using these as light box to kind of making like a stand against each other.
I mean, I'm actually quite addicted to social media, and yeah, and as a dating app users, I found it always like very interesting to, I mean, if you are using the dating app, you see all this kind of, it's almost like AI generated image. People are always trying to make this kind of images that presented themselves, but yeah, and once you meet them, you really find like everyone is so different. I mean, they're actually nicer when you meet them, and I think it's how to say, it's, for me, the interesting part is exactly that, that all of us should not try so hard to make these kind of perfect images, because they are actually not so attractive in a way.
I guess like we should say that like we always, like, no matter if you're like what gender orientation you are, everyone are so like obsessed being presenting to be perfect. Especially on these social media or dating apps, we just obsess in editing our portrait or editing our image to show us in our perfect way or the best way we can. And then through that ad, do we lose the true self? And at the end of the day, ultimately, you have to meet that person out of these, like, out of all the conversation you have maybe on the dating app, as you mentioned, like the lines that you always observe when you were talking to people, like those lines seem so boring. At the same time, they are still trying to present themselves as perfect, because some of the lines say, oh, I'm masculine, oh, I'm well educated, or yeah, I don't smoke, something, trying to like make yourself attractive or seems perfect. But as you mentioned, when you actually meet that person in reality, then there are ways of that person that you might find attractive, but at the same time there are other ways that they are less attractive. But I guess you're trying to present it as, okay, let's like look at this in a less
yeah, yeah.
We are.
And yeah, just a kind reminder to everyone that there is more behind these kind of perfect images that you choose to present yourselves on social networks or like dating apps.
I think Ron has like kind of shared a comment to your kind of series of work, and like I think he mentioned that he thinks that your work is very personal, like through what you have shared with us so far, and it seems that you have been very successful in releasing yourself from journalism, being a very objective kind of perspective into these subjective emotion, feeling, releasing these in your artwork. And do you want to share with us some maybe recent project that you're working?
Yes. This one might be like a bit different from what I have shared. And I mean, as all of us know, that we've been in this situation. I mean, yesterday is the 1 year anniversary of like one grand protest we had last year. and we have been in this situation for more than 1 year now. And I have been thinking about it and digesting about the situation myself for so long. And what caught my attention is that there are so many, there are residue of graffiti in the protest scenes. So I just went to some of the protest scene. I also collected them online. And in the beginning, I was just collecting or taking photos myself. Maybe not this. This is one of the scenes in the school. This is also, yeah, something like this. But I found it very beautiful, just naturally beautiful. If you don't think about the context. And what I have been, and I also try to collect it, some of them on Google Street. This is very interesting because I think Google Street just updated their data. And now if you go on Google Street, the images you see is shot in September last year. So actually it's after the protest has happened. And you can definitely find many, this kind of residue of graffiti there. I will show you some, like this. This. So what I have been trying to do is I turn this kind of pattern into, for now I only had one tryout, and I turn these kind of patterns into a 3D objects in 3D modeling softwares. And I try to combine them with other materials to make a more realistic scenes. This stone-like object is actually is coming from this one. Yeah, I will work on this for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is a kind of more work in progress project.
Yes.
You're sharing with us what you have been trying to work on despite the emotional or impact from what has happened in Hong Kong in the past year. Just to add a little bit more context to maybe people not from Hong Kong or not familiar with what is happening in Hong Kong. So since 1 year ago, Hong Kong this is a first general summary, okay? So we have a extradition law against China on how they're trying to push through a bill to impose people could get arrested easily or could be moved back to mainland for trial. And that's why 1 year ago, Hong Kong people has been going to the street to protest. And since then, there are lots of protests and a lot of excessive police force. And during this process, we have some minimal situation, and people have been trying to put a poster or graffiti on the walls in the street. So that's why Jiaming is trying to show us what the government or the cleaner in the street trying to erase those graffiti or poster from the street. And he's taking these images of these erasing image, because even they try hard to erase them, actually they can't erase all of them. And there are still you can still see vaguely what's underneath. And he's trying to transform these panoramic view of the street view of this graffiti into this kind of 3D objects. And in this case now is a rock. And I'm sure like he's still doing different trials and different kind of development for this project. So probably we could stay tuned on
Yes.
what's going to come up from here. So Jay has just mentioned that, could you show us the move test?
I'm showing, this one.
Yeah. So this
is very short, I think just 3 seconds.
Yeah. And I think it would be quite interesting to see how it would evolve, like what the image would evolve into an object as well. Like,
because I mean, actually there are like quite a few artists working with this kind of graffiti, and yeah, I think if like some of you are interested in like similar projects, there is one exhibition in JCCAC by Samson Wong Pak Hang. There is also some works about the residue of the graffiti. Check it out.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure there are like kind of quite a lot of different exhibition like around now talk about the movement and stuff. So definitely recommend people to check them out. And I think Jay is interested to know how do you transition from using photograph as a medium, as what you're used to from the journalism background and what you're interested as a medium, and then you're transitioning to this 3D animation medium. And do you have any intention?
I think personally, I have always been interested in using 3D softwares in a way, because I think, how to say, it's also a method of making images, and I'm interested in that. But in this specific project, I think it has a meaning that in the real world that we try to make graffiti on the wall. That's a manifesto against the government or the authority, but the government and the authority try so hard to remove it. And contradictory to this, or against this, we in another world, in the virtual 3D world that we created, we somehow can save this for longer or like forever. This is like the ideal virtual world that I want to create.
I guess it's at the same time, I think it would be interesting to see, like after it turns into a 3D or animation, if you're interested in turning it into even more solid object, like painting or other kind of technique to make it into a sculpture or object, then you're trying to like review these images of supposedly erasing people, like the government is trying to erase from people's mind or got the public memory, but then at the same time you're trying to turn it into a solid memory that obviously all of us know that this has happened and this cannot be kind of erased or taken away that easily. And yeah, thank you so much for like trying to do this in such a different way, like apart from like taking pictures of like the actual scene, but trying to transform it as well. Do we have some question from other audience as well regarding maybe the previous project, like the first project that Jiaming has shared with us? Do you know where the birds are? This photo series taken in the Kowloon Park, or the collaboration project that he did with the other artists in Shanghai, the Mushroom Project, or the graduation project, The Excessive Perfect. If you have any question, feel free to unmute yourself and share with us your thoughts or comments. And yeah.
Hi. Hi, Celia. This is Angie. Hi, Jiaming.
Hello.
I have a question for you. Actually, for
Yes.
your graduation project, because I feel like what I'm curious about is, have you got any feedback from like your viewers or even from the people who you are photographing at? Because I think like many of us could resonate to this project, no matter responding to how we socialize, how we meet new people on social media, on dating apps, or how we see ourselves or people we discover presenting themselves. So I'm just curious, like, have you got any feedback, and will that be part of the bigger research or the bigger thing you're looking at, or will influence I don't know, will take you to another level of developing the project?
I don't understand the question, sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I'm curious is, have you got any feedback from either people who are looking at your work or people who are being taken photographs of, the protagonists of your photos? And I'm also curious whether those feedback will take your research or your project to another level, because I just feel like this particular project seems to invite us to, chiming some thoughts or some actions. I don't know, but that's why I'm curious. Yeah.
I think personally, I have always been interested in how straight people feel about this project, because somehow, I mean, the specific context of this project is only about gay dating apps, but I'm sure many people who are not gay and who is not using dating app would feel related to it. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't receive many feedbacks about this, but I have always had this question. I mean, how straight people feel about it, and somehow I feel kind of uncertain or insecure about is it, I mean, the phenomena or the behavior on dating app is out there, and I don't know how those dating app users would feel about like me using their behavioral conversation in this work. That's my thought. Yeah.
Really interesting observation, because I also agree. Like, I think last time I see photographs like describing strong intimacy, maybe from Nan Golden, like from her works, and then it's more about homosexual relationships. You're right. Like, I see more of that, so it makes me also think of how should I see this intimacy, not only in certain sexual orientation, but the other part seems it's kind of mixed from, like, no matter it's art practice or like from being visible. Just sharing some thoughts. That's true. Thank you.
But I think the context of from the time that Nan Golding's well-known photo series has also been changed. I mean, the social situation or the way we interact with people, the way we deal with intimacy has changed from her time to our time. I think, I mean, definitely in her time, there's no dating app, there's no social media. I think that's something new that like young artists like us or like modern people are dealing with.
And also, I think Leon also share his thought about like how this is interrogating the public and private kind of space or situation that you're dealing with, because you are trying to review some of your very private moment or encounter or interaction with these people, but at the same time you're trying to show the other more publicity side of being on the social media, or how people are trying to portray themselves in this way. And also he mentioned like the private encounter or interaction that you display in the park through the photography series, how it contrasts in how you share on a dating app and social media as well. Because I think you trying to confuse like that kind of experience, why people are still keep doing it now, going to the park. Because I think you mentioned as well, this series, you're still, from time to time, you're still trying to go back to the park to retake or continue to take some more pictures. Because I think the personal kind of experience or feeling of the waiting, the encounter, the excitement, and all this feeling is very mixed and very personal in how you're trying to show.
And it makes a moment to think about it. But I mean, definitely as a previous semi-journalist, I believe that like every personal story or personal experience deserves being known or being documented, because it's always related to others. I mean, the notion of public is consisted of like many different personal stories or personal compartments.
It's totally like I think many artists are trying to show in their artwork on some hidden or overlooked or invisible stories behind the general environment that we are under now, the general principle concept that we're living in. And thanks for sharing with us. Do I have any other thoughts or sharing that others want to share for now? I think Leon also mentioned that he thinks that the Butler's ideas around performativity that flow through all the projects that you have, that your own journey transitioning from being a journalist to an artist. And I think one of the questions we have as well is whether you consider yourself like performing in front of camera or involve yourself as part of the artwork as well. I think in your graduation project you have tried to do it in the selfie as well. Are you interested in even
I'm interested. I will do more. I think I will do more in the future. If I had chance.
Sure. Thank you very much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
Maybe
one more question.
Time now.
Someone from what's around the male gaze.
No, don't worry. Maybe, okay, let's take the last question from Leon. So Leon is sharing that like he's also struggling with some unformed thoughts around the male gaze, and it comes from the second piece, the mushroom piece, where you did in Shanghai around the inside the mansion. So the social media appear to be democratized, but it's actually just supporting male dominance. And does that form a conscious part of your work? Because I think what he's trying to say is on social media, most of the male gaze.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. I mean, we know that, and we deliberately want to show that part. Somehow, I mean, from my own understanding, I don't think social media it's naturally like that. But social media is just a platform. But the society we are living in is like definitely more male dominant, and social media is just a platform that somehow it is used to enhance this kind of male dominance.
Because it's very much a reflection of like the social.
Yeah, of the actual life. Yeah, of the real life.
Like the patriarchy kind of concept that are conveyed in the project as well, and how like people are obsessed nowadays in that. Yeah, thanks for sharing, and
Thank
thanks
you
for everyone joining us today as well. And our upcoming program is for the coming Monday, so stay tuned for our next studio visit. And thanks again for Jiaming for joining us.
Thank you guys.
Have a nice weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.